The opinions expressed on the Simone Edwards Show by our guests are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station, its owners, and or the Simone Edwards Show and those affiliated with it. In no event will the Simone Edwards Show, this station, its owners, guests, hosts, or affiliates be liable for the information disseminated on the program, including, without limitation, any loss or damage, indirect or otherwise, arising from information presented on the show. We trust you are of legal age and will consult appropriate professionals prior to employing any opinion expressed on the show. Many of the topics discussed are personal in nature, and some people may disagree with the opinions expressed on the show. We are open to your constructive criticism and or ideas for future radio programs. Please feel free to email us at the Simone Edwards Show @gmail.com. Again, that's the Simone Edwards Show @gmail.com. All right, we want to welcome you all to another installment of the Simone Edwards Show here on this station. We are so excited about this show today. It is the second Saturday, and as you all know, we do a series coming from different segments every Saturday, and the second Saturday is our Love and Relationship series. Last time we talked to the married folks, and we talked about why married sex is the best sex with Elise Rodriguez. She'll be back in studio in a couple of months to talk about the psychology of sex, so tune in for that one. Married folks, we've got you. We want to do what God has enabled us to do for you all, and that is to help restore and revitalize marriages. This week, however, we are going to be talking to us in general, and we have our recurring guest. She's been with us for about 2 years now, almost 2 years.
I think so, yeah.
We have Cherise M in studio. She is a certified Prepare-Enrich Facilitator. She has group therapy groups that she does throughout the city. Just a fascinating woman. She has a program that she does. So you say you want to be married to prepare those who want to be married for marriage. And so we've been doing a series called Tell Yourself the Truth. And we're going to be talking about MisBelief Therapy today. So before we jump off into the deep end, those who've been with us, you are familiar with Cherise. Those who are tuning in for the first time, we want to introduce you just a little bit. So Cherise, you have been doing this for 25 years.
Well, in social services for 27, actually, in therapy for 20, yeah.
Wow. So what got you into the field?
It's kind of hard to say about social service. I kind of fell into it with a degree in psychology. But with marriage and family, when I decided to go ahead and pursue a master's degree in that, I was dealing with my own bad marriage.
Okay.
And was sitting there with an intern therapist, and I felt so sorry for her. Because we brought her a mess. And she just sat there. I cried for most of the time. And my now ex-husband, he sat there and monopolized most of the time, and I just felt really, really bad for her.
Wow.
So I remember thinking, this is what I should do. I should go into therapy, but my goal at the time was to warn people against marriage. Like you all don't know what you're thinking about. You say you want to be married, but you really don't know what it's. Because I know I didn't, and I went in with just some crazy thoughts about it. I went in knowing I could get out, which is not how we're to do that when you look at marriage as being a covenant. So didn't know what I was doing. I was young and really, really immature. Had some role models in my family that too were pro-divorce. So I knew if this doesn't work, I know what I can do.
Right.
So I went in with the wrong attitude. And it's weird because now that I am doing therapy, and within the last, I'd say 3 years, I really do want to focus on the premarital piece of it.
Right.
And I'm back to where I was thinking I want to not warn people about marriage, but really help prepare them for what it is they're doing.
It's funny you should say that, Cherise, because as you're talking, all that came to my mind is a quote I read the other day that says, "Your greatest pain will launch you into your greatest ministry." And it
was painful.
Yeah.
It was painful.
And so I find it really interesting that how God works and how he has taken your life and kind of shifted it. And so now the thought patterns that you had and what you experienced, you can now use that to pour into the lives of other people and to help them navigate that road as they prepare for marriage or even prepare for life.
I enjoy premarital. I enjoy it when couples come wanting the information and wanting the tools, wanting the skills, and are willing to hear.
Right.
And a lot of times that means they come wanting to prepare for a marriage and not just prepare for a wedding.
Oh, that's good.
Because if your thinking is already about the placemats and who's going to sit where and the color scheme,
Right.
you're beyond sometimes the point of, okay, what can I do differently to make this marriage the best marriage ever? What can I add to it? I already love this person loves me, but I want to know what this relationship can be and what I can do to help it be the best that it can be. And when you come with that attitude to premarital, it's wonderful. It's for them, but it's wonderful for me because it's like giving me this permission to speak into these lives. And it doesn't have to be just young people. Speak into lives. And what about marriage? It kind of, I learn something too every time because
Right.
I think I know about communication. I think I know about how to teach people how to communicate well, but until that person's in front of you and until they're showing you what they already have and what they're working with,
Right.
okay, well, I need to figure out a different way of teaching that skill because everyone comes to a situation differently. They come with different experiences,
Right.
but they also come with different reasons and things they want to take away from that experience as well.
That's really good. And this is what 20-something years of experience will give you. So for those who are listening who may be like, wow, I really liked what I heard, how do they get in contact with you if they're in the San Diego area?
The best way is through my voicemail, which is 760-230-3500. You can email me, Cherise M. Young at yahoo.com. Those two are the best ways. I'm on Facebook, have my own website, cherisemyoung.org.
Excellent. And so if you missed any of that or you happen to be in the car and you don't have time to write that down, just connect with us at the Simone Edwards Show and we will definitely forward that information on to her. So now that we've gotten to know you, let's jump off into the deep end. We're going to talk about misbelief. And you sent me some information to research so that we could craft questions and collaborate for this show. And I'm telling you, my eyes were just blown wide open. I can't wait to get my hands on this book. So what is misbelief?
Misbelief is a term that came to us from Dr. William Backus, and it's another word for lie.
Oh.
It's just another word for lie.
It's a pretty word.
It's just a prettier word for lie. But his thought is a misbelief are those things we tell ourselves, those things we how we react and respond in life based on the lies that we've had just kind of told over our lives and the things that we repeated in our own lives. So it could be how we are. It's not so much the event, because what Backus was looking at is sort of a different approach than what Freudian psychology does.
Okay, so
And
what's the difference?
Freudian psychology looks at, okay, in order for you to emotionally heal fully and completely, we need to go back and look at your childhood intensely, in detail, and for as long as it takes. Backus says it's not so much the event, it's what we told ourselves and what we're telling ourselves about the event.
That's good.
Yes, you were abused, but what did you tell yourself about that abuse? And it's based on what we told ourselves. That's how we make the decisions that we make.
Okay.
So it's the event, and then it's the emotion we attach to it. So it's not so much the emotion than the event. So it's sometimes we have to remember, okay, for instance, talk about these two sisters. One sister said, Mom didn't love me, never cared anything about me, didn't want to have me. Mom loved you, telling the other sister. Sister B says, no, I don't think I was treated any better than you were. I wouldn't say that she didn't love you. Mom was tired. Mom didn't have very good parenting skills. Mom just really was a crappy mom. It wasn't so much that she didn't love you, she just didn't know how to show you. And I don't think she loved me more than she loved you. I think she just really didn't know how to show that love that she did have. So they both in the same home, same mom, same experiences, but they walked away from it telling themselves something differently about it.
What I like about this, though, or at least the Bacchus side of it, because my understanding, and we were laughing about this before we got on air, I'm very much a fan of, yes, I will bring in cursory information, but let the experts be the experts. what I like about the two different styles of therapy is the Freudian approach. Your healing seems to take a whole lot longer because if I've got to go all the way back to my earliest memory just to come forward, that's a long trip. There's just
a dangerous trip,
right? And one that I may not be able to come back from. Whereas
Exactly.
with the Bacchus approach, it's not negating what happened.
No.
It's no, it happened.
It happened.
But what are you telling yourself about what happened? And it seems that once you discover what you're telling yourself and you eradicate the lie and replace it with the truth, then it speeds the healing process.
There's a lot of people to do that psychoanalysis where they believe you should be in therapy for 20, 30 years.
Wow.
I came into it believing that I'm not going to be in someone's life that long. And if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm giving them tools and skills where they don't even have to remember that they ever met a person named Cherise along the way.
Wow,
they have
Cherise,
the tools,
that's
they have the
beautiful.
skills. I'm just to go with them for part of the journey. Now, the first time I realized how in opposition I was of other people's thinking. I was saying this in a supervision group and didn't realize that my own supervisor was one who had clients for 15, 20, 30 years. And the others in my work, they're looking like, shh, shh, hush, hush. I'm like, what? I'm not going to be in their life that long. What are you talking about? They say, he has clients, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, but I just don't feel that I'm doing my job as a therapist. I don't feel I'm doing my part as a sojourner with them if I'm still locked arms with them every step of the way. What are they learning? They're replacing the other crutch. They're replacing me for that other crutch. Whatever they were leaning on, whether it was drugs or alcohol or bad relationships, now they're leaning on me. And as soon as I die, as soon as I leave, as soon as I do whatever, they're going to feel abandoned again. And they're going to start limping around. So I'm not doing what I should be doing, could be doing, if I'm not really helping them to figure out some things for themselves.
That's excellent. That is absolutely excellent. So, how can we identify when we're operating out of a misbelief? So let's talk to the person who, actually to all of us, that we're operating in some level of misbelief in our life about something. How do we identify it?
The best way to know is if we operate on a lot of shoulds and coulds and ought tos. They should love me this way. I should be doing this. I ought to be here. Life has to be like this. A lot of absolutes, but a lot of things where we're saying, if they love me, they would do this. If they cared about me, then they know that I deserve this. So we're really talking unrealistically, but we also, because of those unrealistic beliefs, then we also have these things where we have a lot of worry, have a lot of resentment, have a lot of anger, anxiety. So if there is anything where our emotions are out of balance, any emotional turmoil, that's an indicator that we have some misbeliefs going on in our lives.
One of the things that in the research that you sent me, it talked about that no one owes you. And here's a big thing, because we say this in life, you're not entitled to anything and nobody owes you. Here's one of the things that blew my mind that I want you to elaborate on. He said, no one owes you love.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard to believe that, I know.
Right.
But no one owes you love. Do you deserve love? Sure.
Right.
He's not saying that's not
Right,
true.
right.
But if I'm in a relationship with someone and John, and I believe that John owes me love, then I'm going to determine how John can love me and should love me. He owes me. I'm such a wonderful person, and he's John, and I'm his, and he's mine, so he owes me this. When I base my decisions on that, base how I respond to him, how I react to him, then I'm waiting to see if he's going to give me what I think I'm owed. That means I have a tally going.
Right.
Cherise does this, John does that. Cherise does 1, 2, 3, John does a half of one. Oh, no. He owes me 3 more things to get to equal with me.
I'm telling you, when I read that alone was like the reinvention of the wheel and sliced bread all at the same time. I was like, the bread can be sliced and the wheel goes around? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
I absolutely love that because, I just, speaking for myself, to me that was revelatory because it was the sense of, I can look back on relationships and kind of go, okay, well, yeah, maybe I did deserve it, but you don't owe that to me. It's my job to love you. And it's my job to know that I'm already loved. And operate from that truth.
And I think that's what gets a lot of people. When you go into a relationship, not knowing who you are, not understanding who you are, not believing that you're already whole, then you will believe that, okay, I'm going to limp and kind of move to the side until someone else comes along and shores me up.
Right.
They don't owe you that. You come into it with wholeness. You come into it believing who you are in Christ, knowing who you are and that you're a whole individual. And when you know you're a whole individual, no one else they don't have to do anything for you.
Right.
And they can have their bad days. They can have their ugly attitudes, and you're going to go on with your life and you're going to be just fine. Thank you very much.
Right. And it makes me think about something I read from Dr. Miles Monroe, and I've been given the signal that I have to take a break for station identification. So we will chat about what I read from Dr. Miles Monroe, continue with this amazing interview with Cherise Young. We hope you're enjoying yourselves. We hope that you will grab a hold of the book or grab a hold of Cherise and learn how to tell yourself the truth and eradicate those misbeliefs from your life. We'll be back in just a moment.
You are listening to the San Diego station of inspiration. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. KTAV Radio. For more information on how you can advertise your business, event, or services, please visit us online at ktav.tv or call 619-246-6131.
All right, we are back here in studio with Cherise M. Young, M.A., certified Prepare-Enrich Facilitator, and we have been talking about MisBelief Therapy. When we last left off, she was talking about coming into a relationship and the importance of coming into a relationship whole. And so I was talking about Dr. Miles Monroe, and one of the things that I had read in one of his books was that it's important to make sure that you're coming into a relationship knowing that you are already whole, and that it's a fallacy to believe that, we operate under this two halves make a whole. That works for math, but that doesn't really work in relationships. So elaborate to us even further. What is MisBelief Therapy?
MisBelief Therapy is looking at those lies that we've accumulated over the course of our lives, and we've based things on, and we've made decisions on. One of the things we talk about, how do you know, or how do you identify the misbelief? And it's really what he says, we're conducting our lives based on a misbelief when we assume that our feelings are based on something outside of ourselves. So I'm grouchy because you cut me off in traffic.
Right.
I'm upset because of something you did or something someone says, not because I choose to be upset or grouchy.
Right.
And when we do that, we're actually giving our power away to other people.
That's good.
So the belief is that I don't have any control over my life. I don't have any control over my emotions. I don't have any control over what's happening to me inside of me. Everything around me and outside of me is what's making me do what I do.
Right.
So the therapy piece is then looking at that and trying to understand, how are you? Why? Okay, you're anxious, you're depressed, you say you lack self-control. Let's look at what's going on the inside of you. Let's look at those things. And again, let's not try to figure out why mama did and daddy didn't.
That's good.
We're not talking about that. We're looking at what are your beliefs? What are your beliefs about your own life? And you have to be honest with yourself to know what those are. You have to identify them. This is one thing we're going to talk about a little bit later too, but identify what those misbeliefs are. Use the Word of God to combat them. Then you're going to replace them with the truths.
That's good.
Sometimes what we do, there's the misbelief, and we say, okay, I know what it is. I can walk away from it. Cool. No, you have to remove it. But when you remove it, you have to replace it. The Bible says put off and put on.
That's good.
A lot of times we put off, but we don't put back on. Go on a diet, you say, I'm not going to eat any more sweets. But if you don't put some applesauce in there or some fruit in there, you're going to go back to the cakes because you want something sweet.
Right.
If you say, I'm never going to smoke again, but you don't do the nicotine gum or the patch or gum period, you're going to go back to that because, the misbelief is smoking is the only thing that calms me down. So if I believe, I deserve that. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke anymore. So yeah, I should have that fourth brownie. That's a misbelief.
Right.
And we use those misbeliefs to justify our behavior. But when we realize, I don't have to have 4 brownies. I'm good. The truth is, a brownie will do it. The fourth one, I don't have to smoke, I don't have to drink, I don't have to have a 4th brownie, I don't have to have unprotected sex, non-marital sex. No, I can be a whole person. I can love me as I am, as I'm moving toward whoever it is I'm going to be in
Right.
Christ.
I love that. And I love the whole idea of the fact that you incorporated the Word of God and you talk about putting off and putting on, because nature itself teaches us that. I mean, I have a backyard. It's a shame. Really? Anyone who's a gardener, don't even look at my backyard. Don't do it. You'll be sad. But the thing about the backyard is there's stuff growing back there that I didn't plant. I can't tell you how many times things have been uprooted and it's been cleaned and it looked amazing and it was pristine, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to putting stuff in. I'm going to get to putting the cactus along the back and the back wall, and I'm going to do all that stuff. And life gets in the way and I don't. And within 3 weeks, there's stuff growing until it turns into the Amazon again in my backyard. Yeah. And so I love the fact that you brought out the putting off and putting on, because if we drop a habit, but we don't pick something up to put it in
Healthier.
Its place, we're going to revert back to that thing.
It's
because
familiar.
Yeah.
Even though it's unhealthy, even though it's uncomfortable, and the results of it are it's familiar. So it's not so much just the head knowledge that
Right.
it has to be some action, some behavior that also goes along with it.
I love it.
You identify it, sure. Okay. Now, Simone, there's things in our lives we've identified. Okay, I shouldn't do that. There's the shoulds again, right?
There's a should.
I shouldn't do that. Okay, but what can I do instead?
Right.
And we don't get to that part a lot of times. We don't get to what we can put in place of what we shouldn't be doing.
Right.
I ought not think that way. Well, what should you be thinking about? What can you be thinking about instead? Well, you're supposed to think about those things that are above and not beneath.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I don't have to think about him anymore, even though he left me 20 years ago. I can think about where I'm moving to and what I'm going toward.
I love it. And the other thing that I'm really loving about what you're saying is it's taking away the finger pointing and it's taking away the blame. It doesn't negate the event. It doesn't negate what was done. It's just kind of like, it's not your fault that I'm acting. It's, okay, yeah, that happened. And so now what are my choices now that I'm here?
I think it was a conversation I had with a relative who, I wasn't taught this, but now you're 40 years old. What are you teaching yourself?
Right.
True enough, maybe a parent didn't teach you that, but you know how to read. You know how to research things. I'm your sister. I'm your cousin. So why don't you come and ask me how I can help? So it's not so much what they didn't do. It's what are you doing right now to move you forward, to propel you forward into the future that you say you want. So we can point our finger, we can blame, or we can just get busy about our own healing, and it's within our reach to do so.
Right. Oh my gosh, Cherise, I absolutely love this. So, talk to us about MisBelief Therapy and how it can adversely impact our relationship with ourselves, with God, with each other.
Okay. I think this I'm going to use an example, and I think this is going to kind of point to all 3 of those.
Okay.
Let's say there's a couple, and they are standing and looking at the Grand Canyon. They're standing there looking at the same thing at the same time. One partner says, wow, look at this. God made this, and God made me. The same God who made this great thing, this wonderful thing, made me. This is a wonderful work of art. I'm a wonderful work of art. Wow, look at me, look at God. The partner then looks at standing right there, looks at the same thing and says, wow, look what God did. God has this to his credit. Why would he care anything about me?
Wow.
You know what? Look at little old me and look at this great, big, wonderful thing. What does it matter what I do and what concerns me? Wow, how insignificant I am compared to all this that God made. So one that talks about your self-image.
Right.
It talks about who you are and what you believe about yourself.
Right.
the one partner looked at the word that says in Ephesians 2:10 that I'm a workmanship unto Christ. I am a work of art. And just, big smile on his or her face. The other one says, yeah, God is a great God, and I'm so small. Was it something someone told him or her along the way? Could have been. Was it something about that? Those experiences shaped that negative self-image.
Mm-hmm.
So do I go back and try to figure it all out? No, I have to look at, okay, what does the word say about me today?
Right.
Well, the same word that my partner read is there, and it's available for me as well. So I could continue to say, oh, I'm just nothing. I'm nothing but a worm.
Right.
What you are is what God made you.
Right.
Find those scriptures that say who you are. You're a head, not the tail. You're above and not beneath. You're more than a conqueror. Oh, yeah, God made me that way.
Right.
So now imagine what it is for those two in the home, where one is like, I'm just so nothing. And then the other one, is trying to pump them up. And no, we're wonderful. We're made by Christ. We have the strength of Christ. We can do all things through Christ.
Right.
After a while, you're going to get tired of being that other person's cheerleader.
That's good.
If I don't believe that for myself, then how dare I believe you're going to believe it for me?
Right.
There's another book, and its last name is Segal, S-E-G-A-L, and it's called Feeling Loved. And it's talking about the difference between feeling love and being loved. I could tell you I love you all day long, Simone, but if you don't believe that, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You're hearing my words, and you're saying, okay, thank you, Cherise, wonderful. But if you don't feel it,
Right.
then you're going to go about your life operating on what you feel.
Right.
And so as a partner to another, one could say, this is what we're going to do. We have plans, and we're going to accomplish those plans. But if I'm believing, that's not going to happen because everything I put my hand to fails, or that life is always throwing me curveballs. I can't expect anything good to come out of this. Then somebody's going to get tired of being the positive for the both of them.
Right.
You're going to have to believe it for yourself. So it talks about one, in that same example with the Grand Canyon, what their belief is about God and their relationship with God, what their belief is about themselves, and actually what they believe about their partner. So it's going to be hard to have relationships. It's going to be hard to have an honest and authentic relationship with Christ when you're thinking, oh, yeah, I know we matter, but some of us matter more to God than others. No, that's not what the word says. That's not the truth. But no, I don't matter because all that stuff that's happened to me, all that stuff I've done along the way, no, that's not for me. Those gifts, that's not for me. So that there, I think, as if I were a pastor, instead of talking so much about sin and disobedience, let's talk about what the truth says and what the truth says about you. And when you know who you are and when you can operate that, I believe it wholeheartedly that I'm going to move away from those things that are destructive, that are distracting me.
Right.
Because I want to be who Christ made. I'm going to embrace all of what God has for me. So so let's talk about who I really, really am.
Right. That's really, really good. And I love the fact that you use such a beautiful example to encapsulate how we relate to God, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to other people. So now, talk to us about how do we, before we get to how we address the misbeliefs, give us some examples because you set a good foundation. Okay. So now let's build upon that. Talk to us about misbelief and depression. Talk to us about anxiety and self-control and fear of change and anger.
Okay. And those are just a few of the misbeliefs that are listed in the Backus book.
Right.
But there's some of the common ones, and I think there's some of the ones that I run across a lot with clients.
Okay.
And it seems to be underlying most of their concerns.
Okay.
Anxiety and depression are the biggest things that I see. And with that comes the fear of change or the belief that I lack self-control.
Right.
So all of that's in there. And anger, a lot of people say what depression is just unresolved anger.
Right. So
all of that is, we can tease them out, but sometimes they're just one big ball of whatever's ailing us.
Right.
So we're looking at, one is the misbelief of depression. If you say things, if you hear yourself saying things like, I'm no good and life's no good or my future is hopeless, that's letting you know that you are operating under the misbelief of depression. If we believe that nothing we're going to do in the future is ever going to be about anything, then we're just going to kind of stay where we are, stay stagnant, not really try to operate with any type of hope. This is just how it is, Eeyore type living. And there's a lot of Eeyores in the church, because we're not believing, the other misbelief about anger is, we're not supposed to be angry or depressed. We're supposed to be depressed because we're Christians.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to stop you right there. We have to take a break for station identification, because that was another thing that stood out in the research that you sent me, is the misbeliefs about anger and depression as it relates to being a Christian. We will be back in studio in just a moment.
Get your deliverance back. It's yours. God, I feel like preaching in this desert.
Perfecting Grace invites you to Deliverance in the Desert 2016. Our theme this year is number 7, the year of completion. Join us this Labor Day weekend for 3 days of celebration, deliverance, and more. With Elder David Hollis of Gary, Indiana, Elder Mark Moore Jr. of Atlanta, Georgia, Pastor Sean McMillan of Los Angeles, Pastor Larry Weathers of Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and Bishop George Awesome Dawson of Sugar Land, Texas. The 2016 Deliverance in the Desert Conference will be held September 1st through the 3rd at the Renaissance Esmeralda Resort and Spa in Indian Wells, California. For conference and room reservations or more information about this conference, please visit us at perfectinggrace.net. Again, that's perfectinggrace.net.
All right, we are back in studio with Cherise M. Young, M.A., a certified Prepare-Enrich Facilitator. We have been talking about MisBelief Therapy and its impact on our relationships, how it can adversely impact us. We've been talking about why Dr. Bacchus's theory is so much more productive than the Freudian approach of going all the way back to your childhood and hoping you make it out. Instead, Dr. Bacchus tends to focus more on, yes, we're going to address the event, but to get to our healing, we're going to talk about how the event impacted us and what we have been telling ourselves about that event. So to bring us forward, Cherise, one of the things that you talked about before we went to break was some of the common misconceptions and misbeliefs that we have towards anger and depression, especially as it relates to being a Christian. So enlighten us.
When you think about Christianity, you're talking about salvation, you're talking about the good news. So knowing that a lot of Christians come into this relationship with Christ thinking whatever ailed them before, whatever caused them to have any type of ill feelings, well, it's just going to magically disappear.
Right.
I no longer have to be depressed anymore. And think about this. You come to church Sunday after Sunday, you hear these messages about how great this relationship is, and you walk out still feeling defeated, still feeling like, I still have this heaviness.
Right.
So you're going to feel like, well, I must not be a good enough Christian.
Right.
I must not. If my father had this saying, well, you must not be praying right. Like, oh, that just irked me. How can I pray wrong? Well, how is that possible? If I'm earnestly seeking and reaching out and speaking out, what's wrong with that? But a lot of people will think, well, it must be me.
Right.
There's something wrong with me. So they put on that happy face. They put on that mask that says, I'm a good Christian, I'm joyful. And if anything is going on, it's because people around me, back to that finger pointing,
Ooh, that's good.
People around me aren't acting right. If my children would just be better, I'd be happier.
Right.
If my husband would treat me differently, if my wife would treat me differently, things would be wonderful. So not understanding there's probably something going on the inside of you, something that you're telling yourself about yourself that's keeping you stuck and keeping you sad. So being honest, it's not like God doesn't know anyway.
I'm so glad you said that.
So be honest. Admit it. Lord, there's something going on here. I don't feel, I believe your word says there's joy. Your word says there's peace. I'm not feeling it. So what can I do differently? What do I need to do differently so I can experience what they say is mine through you?
Right.
And you're acknowledging that there's something out of balance. but I want to make it right. I want to be available and open to whatever it is that you have for me. So what do I need to do to get out of my own way for it?
That's excellent. That is really excellent. So talk to us about the misbelief as it relates to anger.
Anger, it's similar to
Right.
depression. Like I said, there's people who believe that depression is unresolved anger. So when you think about anger, I'm going to do this because it's also going to show us how to get back to the place where we can address the misbeliefs as
That's
well.
good.
So I used this example in a group I did with some women not too long ago about Marilyn and Jack.
Okay.
Okay, Marilyn is believing that, Jack is insensitive, Jack isn't there for me, so I have a right to be angry with Jack because Jack is just intolerable. His behavior is intolerable. It's horrible. It's the most terrible thing. So she's angry with Jack, and whatever Jack wants to talk, I have a headache. Don't bother me, Jack. I don't want. So Jack says, okay, cool. I don't want to be around you. I don't like being around you. What does that do? That makes Marilyn even more angry.
Right.
And I can't live like this. Life is unbearable. I just can't live like this. Jack's going to have to change or I'm going to leave Jack. Okay. So if you believe this, no matter what Jack does, I don't like Jack and I need to leave Jack and I'm angry with Jack. Not understanding that maybe there's anger this is one thing that I think people need to realize. Anger is an honest emotion. It lets us know when we have some unmet need or expectation. Chances are Marilyn didn't express or adequately let Jack know what she expected.
Can I add this? That anger is also, I love the fact that you said it was an honest emotion, but it's also not just an unmet need or expectation, but that's a violation of some sense of justice. Yeah.
Yes, and I think because that you have a right to anger,
Right.
Because when you have it, but do you have a right to hold on to it and not forgive?
That's good.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's different. So yeah, we have things to be angry about. There's a lot going on in the world now that we can be very angry about.
Right.
And as believers, we have a lot to be angry about because they're attacking the Word of God from the left and the right. So we have
Right.
things to be angry about. But what do we do with that anger?
That's good.
Do we then say, okay, then I'm just throwing up my hands. I'm not going to deal with people. Am I going to deal with people who look a certain way? That's not helpful. That's
Right.
not Christ-like.
Right.
So going back to with Marilyn and Jack, can she just? I'm throwing my hands up. I'm done with marriage because Jack's not doing what I want Jack to do.
Right.
So first of all, what are the misbeliefs there? When you think about Marilyn and Jack, one is life is terrible by having a husband like Jack. Okay, life is terrible, and then there's a husband like Jack. Two different things. And why is life so terrible by having a husband like Jack? Because you're negating what Jack is doing, what Jack is doing well. Like you have a roof over your head. Does Jack have anything to do with that? I don't know. The fact that you can go places, do things. What is Jack doing to support that? Is he just always just so horrible? Probably not.
Right.
So we begin to look at things skewed. We don't look at them honestly.
Right.
There is good and there's bad in all of us.
That's good.
And there's good and bad behaviors that we all do.
Right.
But if you only see the bad, then life's terrible. It's just intolerable. It's just horrible. I don't know why we're doing this. That's a misbelief. The other misbelief is I have a right to demand Jack change. Because Jack needs to change his behavior. It goes back to he's my husband. He owes me this.
Right.
So I can demand it, and I can have all the headaches in the world because he's going to change his behavior because that's what I want him to do. The other misbelief is back to he owes me love. He owes me this change. He owes me something. No, he don't. Jack doesn't owe you squat. But we can go through our life thinking that. And then the last one is my happiness, Marilyn's happiness is dependent upon Jack's behavior. No, those are misbeliefs.
Right.
So she has to first identify those. And when you identify them, like, okay, so then what's the truth? You identify them, you remove them. Like, okay, that's not true. That's not how it's supposed. And then you have to replace them.
Okay.
And that's, when we were doing this group with the ladies, they were saying, well, no, Jack should be treating her better. We had an example, and Jack was saying some really insensitive things. Jack was not nice. And comparing her to younger, more shapely women, not nice. But let's also be real now. What is Marilyn's? If Marilyn's telling you need to be this way and you should change this way, and he's like, I'm sick of you picking at me, he might just decide to pick back.
Right.
So the anger on both sides was not helping the relationship
Right.
in any stretch of the imagination. So her expectation wasn't being met. So it looks like Jack's expectations weren't being met
Right.
either. So they were angry with one another. So how do they replace it? The truth is, she needs to realize that Jack is my God-given husband. And although I would prefer him to act differently, my life is full without him making one change. So it takes the onus back on me. I have a full life. I have a rich life. Jack has his issues, but that has nothing to do with my life. He can have his issues, and he'll have to figure out how to work on his issues, but I still have a full life. The other is, it would be nice if he changes, but his changing is not essential for my personal happiness. And I don't think that's in relationships, we don't always realize that. Yes, would it be nicer if they weren't as insensitive? Would it be nicer if they picked up the trash and took out the trash more often? Would it be nicer? Yeah, life would be nicer, but does that mean your life is intolerable and that you just can't be happy any area, any aspect of your life without them doing those things that you want them to do? No, that's not true. The other is, I can live a satisfactory and happy life even if Jack doesn't treat me like I say he should treat me. The shoulds.
You're shooting all over yourself.
You're shooting all over yourself, and that messes us up every time. Jack is what he is,
Right.
and chances are he was like this when you were dating him. So don't trip.
Right.
Don't act like this is some brand new Jack. This is how Jack's been, and you married him.
What I like, though, about this is I know we're using Marilyn and Jack, and it could seem like it's tailor-made for married couples, but really it's the principles. It's using them as the example, and now take Marilyn and Jack, and you could be Marilyn and Jack could be your boss. You know what I mean? You could be Marilyn and Jack could be your best friend. So it's one of those principles that can apply across the board, and it's looking at, I can't change if my boss is the kind of boss that walks in every morning, doesn't say hello, walks into the office, slams the door, comes to my desk, doesn't say good morning, slams things down. That's who my boss is. But his behavior or her behavior is not going to determine my happiness for the rest of that day or for the rest of the 8 hours.
In the group that we do, this is the last one that I did with the women, they were not only talking about partners, they also saw in-laws in this. They saw cousins in this. I'm thinking one of them was talking about, oh yeah, that's my child, that's my son. So yeah, you're right. It's not just about Jack and Marilyn, the married couple. This is about me and my relationships and what I take away from my relationships. Am I always blaming them and depending upon their behavior to determine how I'm going to live my life?
Right.
Who does that? I mean, a lot of us do, yes, but how are we going to remain with some type of happiness if we are actually depending on someone else to change things? I need to figure out who I am, and I'm going to be okay whether you never change or not.
Right.
I'm going to like me. I like me.
Right.
So I'm going to be okay liking me. Now, if you want to get on board and like me too, that's wonderful. But if you don't, I still like me.
I still like me.
So that's the truth of it. It's not that we're changing the event that, Jack was being really, really a jerk. No, Jack was being a jerk. But Jack can be a jerk wherever he wants to be. I still get to like me and like my life and put things in place that says I'm okay with this life.
It's the sense of, it's almost like catastrophic thinking to think that if this person doesn't do X, Y, and Z, then my life will fall apart. When the truth of the matter is, no, because they've not been doing X, Y, and Z, and your life has continued on.
And you've been doing really well. Thank you very much. You've been doing really well to be angry with them, but you've been doing really well.
Right.
So no, we like to think that if certain things line up in our life, then life is going to be wonderful. But let's be realistic. Those things could still line up, but if you have a nasty attitude, it's not going to matter.
Right.
So it's not about the things lining up. It's about our acceptance of our response to what are we doing with the things that we have now. How content are we with life, with the life that we have?
And that's the big key, is contentment. That's one of the big keys. Talk to us about do we need to take a break? We need to take a break. We're 1 minute over. I always get in trouble because I never know when to take a break. I think I should get some gold stars for the time I recognize it, but that's a whole other show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in just a moment.
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's show? Would you like to share your testimony or any constructive critiques? Would you like to know how to be a guest on The Simone Edwards Show? Please feel free to email us at thesimoneedwardsshow@gmail.com. We are also available on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Be sure to follow us to receive updates regarding the show and our other ministries.
All right, we are back here in studio, and I just want to send a shout out to the person who sent me my gold stars thank you so much. You just made my day. Lots of love. Thank you. Shout out to Tony, who is listening to us. She is out of town, taking a much needed break and celebrating her friends and her life. And so, Tony, thank you so much. We can't wait to have you back in studio with us next week. So we are going to, hey, girl. So we are going to continue on with this session on misbelief. And so talk to us about misbelief when it comes to self-control and fear of change.
To know you're operating in a misbelief of self-control, you'll hear yourself say things, I can't stay focused, I'll never lose weight, I can't control my rage or outbursts. These are the misbeliefs that we just can't do anything differently than what we're doing. We can't control those urges, those natural urges, but those urges, they're just outside of me and outside of my control. So they're closely connected to us thinking about it's just unbearable to have to wait on something or go through a process of change. So we're impatient. A lot of times that misbelief is about us being impatient, about us believing that what we desire, what we want needs to come and needs to come right now, and that I really don't have it on the inside of me to wait and to take the steps to go through that process. So the whole thing about self-control is really sometimes a lack of planning. We don't plan out what it is. We talked about the replacing and the removing and replacing.
Right.
So what am I going to put here instead of? What am I going to do differently? And we don't plan that out. We just want something to miraculously change and be better and be different. We don't want to do anything to get it.
Okay, that's powerful in and of itself. Is that if you want change, you're going to have to change.
Yeah.
Novel concept. So talk to us about, now that we've just addressed the misbelief of self-control, talk to us about the fear of change.
I'm the way I am because my dad was like that, my mom was like that. It's just how I am, so deal with it. You know, this is me.
Right. Just
deal with it. So these are the sayings. These are the things that we tell, the self-talk and the talk to others as well. It could be, no one ever showed me a different way, so why expect me to act a different way or to be a different way? Again, other people are assigned the power in our life when we do that. So it's this belief. It not only tells us that it's permissible to be the way that we are, we can also put the blame on everybody else. I am this way, and and so what we're really saying is we don't want to take those steps that we need to take again to make the changes that we have to do. It's saying that it's just easier just staying right here. Yeah, I notice people don't want to hang out with me.
Right.
I notice they don't really, they're not honest with me. They're not truthful, but it's just easier than to take that initiative to do something differently. And change, it can be very scary.
Right.
You're not familiar with what's coming down the pike. You know about what's been happening. Even if it's not helpful, even if it's not positive, you know it.
Right.
But a change could bring, I have to think differently. I'm going to have to act differently. I may not be able to hang out with some of those people that I used to hang out with.
Right.
I may have to change some relationship. Ooh. It's the unknown.
Right.
It's the unknown. So I'm not sure about the unknown. The last time I branched out and tried to do something differently, it backfired on me. It blew up in my face. So that just lets me know, I'm just going to be this way. It's going to have to stay this way. It's safer here.
Yeah. And what I like about what you're saying, which is going to segue us beautifully into what we can do, is sometimes the first step is just to be honest enough with yourself to say, I know I'm like this and I don't want to change, rather than I know I'm like this and it's somebody else's fault why I'm like this, or it's because of how I was raised, or because, you know, I didn't have this or I didn't have that. It's much better to just say, I just, when you brought that out, it was just like the light bulb went on, that, you know, it's so easy to say I'm like this because of, rather than no, I'm like this because I choose to be this way. So talk to us about how we can fix that.
One thing I think we're talking about this particular work, and with the Bacchus work, is his whole premise is we need to go to the truth of the Word of God.
Right.
If we're basing our decisions, our choices on what we know about us, then we're only getting partial picture.
That's good.
We're not getting a complete picture. Until we go to the Word of God to figure out what God says about us, we're not going to know the truth.
Right.
Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. So we believe that, you know, we say that, but I don't know if we really understand what that means.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh yeah,
Right.
he's the way, the truth, and so if I really want to know who I am, I need to know what he's saying about me.
Right.
And what he did for me, and what that afforded me to do. I can live freely. I can live without the burden of my past always there hovering over me. I can put this anger down and be free of it. I can take that mask off and be authentic and be genuine. Really?
Right.
Well, that's what the Word says.
Right.
And we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. So one thing that, you know, we talk about that scripture in, I think it's John 8, where it says, and the truth will make us free.
Right.
Okay, so what does it say, though? It says there's more to that scripture.
Right.
It says you have to abide in the Word to learn the truth, and then the truth will make you free. So how do I figure that out? You have to abide in the Word, dwell in the Word, stay in the Word, figure out what the Word says. I had a client the other day, and she's working on her diet, and she's a believer. And a lot of us who say we're believers, we're not always believing believers.
Right.
We're believers, but we don't believe everything it says in there about us.
Right.
So wanting to be a believing believer, we have to take another step. So she was saying, you know, like, well, so what have you gathered from the Word that says that can help you with your struggle with eating? She says, yeah, I need to look more at those scriptures about gluttony. It's like, no, hold it, wait a minute. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm not talking about those punitive scriptures. I'm not talking about those things that are going to make you feel even more guilty or feel even more badly about it. I'm talking about those scriptures that tell you who you are, who you really, really are.
Right.
And it has nothing to do sometimes with food, but just who you are. Like how loved you are, how great you are, that you are a vessel of honor. Oh, you know that's in there, right? And she was like, well, yeah. I said, we're not talking about the thou shalt nots.
Right.
We're talking about what I get to do because of who I'm made to be and who I've been created to be.
Right.
Oh, I said, yeah, read those scriptures. And I think, again, when you realize who you are, then you can walk away from those behaviors that you felt imprisoned by, you felt that they've captured you in some way. Oh, it's not so much I don't get to do, it's now I get to do more of those things that are going to put me in a better relationship, a closer relationship, and are going to bring me into a place of wholeness. So that's the truth. And we need to go to God's truth to know how to replace those things that have kept us and held us captive for so long, the stinking thinking that gets in the way. Another, Bacchus calls them just some of the common misbeliefs, but most people talk about cognitive distortions. We need to know what those cognitive distortions are. What is the premise of my thinking?
Right.
What am I really dealing with? Am I thinking about that dichotomous thinking? That's that all or nothing.
Right.
You know, it's either black or white. It's either this way or it's no way at all. Well, that's usually not how life works. So, I mean, and let's be real. That's not how life works. Or we talk about catastrophizing. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, I instead of looking at it as a hangnail, oh my gosh, this is probably an infection. My nail bed's probably just gonna fall off right now. No, it's just a hangnail.
Right.
You know, get some clippers, clip it, move on. You know, if you want to, put some hydrogen peroxide on you. If you want to do something about it, but it's not just about that one thing then turning into and snowballing into something worse. trying to read other people's minds. You looked at me a certain way. You don't like me. You're mad at me.
Right, right.
You know, and so let's just look at the truth. I can ask you, Simone, what's going on? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
And if you say yes or no, I need to go with what you say. If you're lying to me, that's on you.
Right, right.
That's on you.
Right.
But if you tell me everything's fine, then everything's fine.
And it's funny because a lot of times I think if we take the time to ask, we'll find out that our assumptions are incorrect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most times. Just ask the question.
Right. And then it swings back to if the person is not telling the truth, if the person is operating in a misbelief or misdirecting, then that's kind of on them.
That's them.
Right.
And I think we need to give people place to be themselves.
Right.
If things still aren't, I asked the question, you gave me the answer, your behavior's not lining up with what you're saying, well, that's you. You figure that out. But I'm gonna base this on what you say.
Right.
And you say we're cool, I'm gonna be cool. Now, actions do speak louder than words. If you're telling me, oh yeah, we're cool, and I'm looking at your face and you're like, yeah, we're cool. Yeah. I'm not gonna believe you.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't need to then, oh, what did I do? What did I
Right.
say? What can
Right.
I do differently?
Right.
No, you told me everything's okay. Then if you need to tell me something differently, you need to come back to tell me that.
Right.
I'm not going to, life is terrible now because Simone looked at me wrong.
Right.
No, Simone needs to fix her face, and then I need to move on and do what I need, because life is great.
Right.
Life is full, life is satisfying, because I'm going to make it that way.
That's so good. We hope that we have come to the end of the show. We hope that you have gathered some information that's valuable to you about MisBelief Therapy. Definitely get the book, Telling Yourself the Truth. It is by William Bacchus. You can find it on Amazon. You can even get it used for $5.89. Y'all don't take my book. I'm going to get it. You can get it on Amazon. 2-day delivery from Oregon. And if you want to send one to the Simone Edwards Show. I will put the P.O. box on the website. But it is a great book. This was incredibly eye-opening. I know for me, it made me look at some areas of my life where I'm kind of like, I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to take back my power in this area. So I know that if it blessed me, it will bless you also. If you are in the San Diego area and you do not have a church home, we want to invite you to come on out to Perfecting Grace. We're located at 3142 East Plaza Boulevard in National City. You can find us online at www.perfectinggrace.net. And if you are in the San Diego area, or even if you are outside of San Diego and you loved what Cherise had to say today and you want her to help you walk through the phone, I'm sure you can work out payment through PayPal. So contact her. You can contact her through the show. You can reach her via her website, which is CheriseMYoung.org. Cherise is CHERISE, Young, M Young, M as in Mary, Cherise M Young. .org, or they can reach you directly via your phone, which is
760-230-3500.
Excellent. We will be back in studio next week for our third Saturday series, which is Girl, Can We Talk? We have a dynamic young entrepreneur who will be coming in to talk to us about how she started her business, how she maintained it, and walking her way through the transition. So we hope that you will join us on air next year. Next week. I'm already that far into it. And look for this interview to pop up on YouTube within the week. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.